this one's really keeping me on my toes, which is great. I feel like I've learned and grown so much. It's incredible. So thank you.
Hi, welcome everyone back to Queer Relationships, Queer Joy. I'm one of your hosts, Keely Helmick.
I'm Melisa de Seguirant.
Welcome, and we are here with our guest today. We like to let you introduce yourselves and anything you want to just introduce about your demographics. So, welcome.
Great. Yeah, my name's Gretchen. I use they and she pronouns. I'm white. I'm bisexual. And yeah.
Great. Kayla, I use she, her pronouns. I'm also white. And I guess,
Get into it. Yeah.
Get into it.
Yeah, I'm queer.
Yeah. Cool.
I did not get into it. I didn't get into it. I left it.
We'll get into it as we move on. Yeah. So we always say you can go back to the first couple episodes, but I am white, queer, non-binary, queer, non-conforming, currently solo. I'm using the term solo instead of single. That's like my thing right now, because I feel like there's so many connotations around the term single. Like, oh, if you're single, then you're actually looking for a partner. And I'm like, well, I mean, no, I'm just solo right now. I'm doing my thing, whatever that means to everybody.
Yeah.
To me, it means still having sex, but that's another issue.
Love it. And I'm Melisa. I am a white cisgender female, bisexual, polyamorous, lots of different things. I'm also solo poly is how I'm identifying right now.
Awesome.
Let's hear about the two of you and just jump in about your relationship and how you met.
Want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. So Kayla and I guess to preface.
She's gonna tell this poorly. I just want to put that in there.
Well, I was just gonna go where we're at now.
Okay.
And then you could tell the backstory.
Okay.
If you want. Okay, so where we're at now, we are in love. But identify our relationship as monogamous.
I like to say we're opportunists.
Yeah, but we are more or less monogamous by choice. That was something that we came to it really intentionally together after coming from different backgrounds relating to styles of dating and styles of love. We've been together for almost 3 years. Yeah, we were firmly monogamous for a couple of years in the middle, but
The pandemic.
we really screwed up in the pandemic. But we did. We were dating for a year before the pandemic hit too. So that was good. We got the roots laid there. But I'll let Kayla tell you about how we met because
Honestly, how we met, I have to go into a semi-personal backstory. I had just gotten out of a 7-year, very monogamous relationship. I don't know, really heteronormative, even though we were kind of queer, but we weren't really,
To be fair, it was 2 women. It was
so it was like we're 2 women, but like other than that, right? Like our storyline and the life we were living didn't have very many queer elements. Needless to say, that fell through. We're all grateful. But I honestly, like, that started when I was 22. And I understood, I'm a lesbian kind of because I like this one woman. I was like, my understanding of my own sexuality, very baby feelings. And then after that relationship ended, I was pushing 29, and I was like, wait, no. Like, I'm queer, gay. Like, it's not, wasn't anything too personal there. And that's when I feel like I came out, even though I was in a 7-year relationship with a woman. I was devastated, of course. Like, it was tough. Like, my 20s were spent thinking I was doing something else. But that ended, and I went to the gym where I worked out, Magnus Strength and Conditioning. Shout out. And I saw Gretchen, and I had been working out at the gym for a while, and then
So like a halo and like just like
honestly,
glow.
I go, oh my gosh, I can date someone from the gym. And then,
this is great. That's so gay right there. I have so many clients. Like, how do you meet people?
Protein
Up in the protein chick. For listeners.
I don't identify as a jock, but I'm sounding pretty bad right now. So I'm
hot. It's
definitely jockey babe. And I was like, yes. And I tried over the course of 2 years to talk to Gretchen. Wouldn't give me the time of day. I was like, hey, how? He's busy. I'll just keep it moving. And at one point, I swear I was doing this exercise. I was like, oh, this is so hard. Oh, I'm working. And Gretchen popped over. I didn't know they even knew my name. I was like, oh, what are you doing? Let me try to. Cool. Thanks. Yeah. So I really tried. I just need to put that out there. And then Gretchen's gonna pretend like they tried, but that's not really what happened.
Well, so then fast forward a couple of years, I became a coach at that gym. I'm still a coach at that gym. Thanks, Magnus. And we every year have a holiday party. The week of the holiday party had shown up another gay element here. I'd shown up at Kayla's other gym, but where she was like,
it's okay. This is the jock part.
it's a climbing gym. She's a rock climber, but I went to the rock climbing gym on a date, but with someone else. And I recognized her from Magnus. It had been a while. And I, for some reason, decided to be chatty instead of shy, which is what was happening all of those 2 years. She was trying to talk to me. I'm very shy. I just don't come across as very shy. And sometimes it works in my favor that I seem cool and aloof, but in fact, just shy. But I decided to talk to her. And I was like, hey, you went to Magnus, right? We're having a holiday party. You should stop by. Come on by. I don't really know what I meant by that, but
Invite happens.
Invite, drop the invite. And she says that she forgot.
I did forget.
And a different friend invited her. But ultimately, she showed up at the holiday party.
Oh, wait. You showed up the same holiday party, but with somebody else.
She didn't come with them, but
It was like a friend. It was a friend.
Yeah.
But it was like a friend who was like, hey, look, I'm at this holiday party. You got to get here because my wife is busy and I need you to come talk with me. And so I went to see her.
And then I was like, she came when I invited her.
No. No. Gretchen was doing some really babely stuff. And I was like, wow, everyone, I knew the two people who I was like there with. I was like, you guys, you got to tell me everything you can. What's Gretchen's deal? I knew nothing. I didn't know if she was queer. I didn't know anything. And they were like, we don't really know. Not so sure, but like, I might as well ask. And I was single at the time and I was dating and looking to date. And I was like, you know what? I need to get turned down. That's what needs to happen. I need to put it out there and I didn't think it would happen. And I was like, I'm gonna ask Gretchen on a date. And so after a little bit of flirting at the gym, which was the babyest window of flirting, where someone was like, oh, Kayla, we haven't seen you in a while. What happened? And Gretchen was like, I invited her.
Was it like the eye contact?
Yeah, a little bit.
I was just like, oh, look, there's something. I don't know if maybe she's just being nice or if there's something there. But slid into the DMs. I was like, you're hot. Let me buy you a drink. And I was like,
go that direct.
You would direct. That's awesome.
Otherwise, you don't know necessarily.
You don't know. Like, is this a friend thing? Is this not a friend thing? Am I flirting? Like, what's happening?
I really appreciated it. It was very direct, just asking me on a date. And at the time, I was practicing polyamory and I was involved in one serious relationship and I was dating a couple of people, but I was in kind of a weird place with those relationships where even it had been a long time, but since I had added someone new to that dynamic and things were a little bit rocky. But I, talked it through and was like, I could use a little fun. And who's this cute little normie here who wants to go on a date?
I'm really.
Wait, what do we mean by normal?
I mean, it actually is a really good segue to how I was feeling leading up to that first date, because I was feeling all kind of hot shit and excited and being like, whatever, I'm going to go on a date. That's fun and a thing that I do. And then as it got closer, I realized that I knew nothing about her.
I wasn't even thinking about
and then I was like, wait. And then I was like, oh shit. I was at a time in my life where I had a lot that I realized I needed to come out about. I had been dating people in the kink community and in the polyamorous community. And I'm a sex educator and I work in personal training and in sex education. And I've been dating people that knew me through that work. So then it was just like, yeah, I'm bisexual. I'm a sex educator. I X, Y, and Z. Like those kinds of things were a little more run of the mill, or people already knew them. And then entering the date, I was like, had this moment where I was raised in a really affirming place for my gender and my sexuality. I never really had a big coming out moment. And I had one of these moments of being like, what if she's not okay with all of these things of who I am and what I'm?
Oh, yeah, that's real.
Yeah, instead of just, when I had, my own thoughts and judgments in my head and being like, what is a normal person going on a date, showing up and being like, I work in IT. I was divorced 3 years ago. Here's like that,
I especially then, I probably still would say I'm pretty vanilla in that regard. I'm kind of like, oh no, I was just kind of being a basic white girl who was kind of like into other women, and then I didn't really know. So that was what I was coming into our date. Needless to say, for me, it was a wild ride.
I was wondering, like, how did the coming out go? What was your response? Have you heard these words before? Are you a West Side lesbian?
We she
like that.
one anecdote from this date that really points out how it went.
So, okay. I even see, like, I probably was wearing this shirt, honestly, but Gretchen was like, I was like very nervous, and I'm not, I don't know if you can tell, but like, I'm not usually very nervous. I'm pretty submissive. And no, I was so nervous, and I didn't know anything about Gretchen at all. And the first thing, we were sitting at the bar, and they were like, you can touch me if you want. And I was like, I don't know.
For listeners who can't see, she's just like just going backwards and like, oh my goodness.
I was very nervous. And then at one point it was like Gretchen pulled the moves out, which was, we'll talk about that. Maybe we'll get to that. Uncharacteristic. And so
Let's being bold.
brought us over and was like, we're going to go to a booth. Do you want to, what did you say?
I said, do you want to sit on opposite sides like we're dating, or on the same side like we're in love? To the same side.
I don't think I had a choice.
Yeah.
We sat down and Gretchen plopped their legs on me, which were at the bar, and was doing like a bisexual. I can't sit, so I'm putting my legs up. Putting my legs down. And I was like fidgeting because I'm so nervous, and it has a little anklet, and I was like, oh, cute. Thought I was asking an innocent question, like, what's this anklet? And then she hit me with, oh, that's my rope family. And I was like I'm a climber. And I wasn't sure what I was getting myself into, but then I learned about.
She learned about my bondage family and how I have a family of people that I travel and teach rope bondage with, and that we have symbols of our commitment to each other. And it's really not what she was expecting to get into with like, cute jewelry. And yeah.
That's so. When you were hearing that from Gretchen, what was going on in your mind, in your vanilla mind?
Oh, vanilla mind was really trying to play it cool, but holy smokes. I think I was freaking out. I got back and like, many in my circles knew, of course, you asked out Gretchen. I was like, I know, right? She's like, yes. And so I was like, just psyched. And then everyone was very surprised. I have one acquaintance who's a mutual friend, and I went out to coffee and I was like, listen, I went on a date with Gretchen. And they were like, Gretchen? I was like, yeah, like I think the Gretchen you know. And they're like, you went on a date with Gretchen. I was like, yes. And they're like, you, Kayla, who I know. I'm like, exactly. And they just really had the delight that they took in the mashing of the two of us was really lovely, because I had no idea. And the things I've learned in the past 3 years have been super cool and transformative. And I love to think back and like remember my baby brain that was like mind blown. And all of my, not all of my friends, but many of my friends also were like, what is suspension rope bondage? Like, what are you talking about? And then, so all of those types of new learnings that have come up for me, I don't know that I'm proud of myself, but I'm truly grateful that I was just like, I'm going to learn. And I don't think I had any judgments. I had maybe some.
If you did, you kept it to yourself.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful response of noting your own, like, whoa, wow, okay, this is new for me. And also, what do I have to learn here? You know?
It's been constant.
Like it hasn't stopped.
Still learning. We just had a new one. I'm always, this one's really keeping me on my toes, which is great. I feel like I've learned and grown so much. It's incredible. So thank you.
I love that, like, growth, that idea of growth and continuing to grow as a couple and grow individually, and that growth is like celebrated and keeps going. Sounds like it's a part of what's working in your relationship. Yeah.
It really is. And I mean, we all just got to hear about Kayla being googly eyed about me, which is awesome. And I love it works for me. But there's also been growth on my side in a number of ways. One of the biggest reciprocal growth being that Kayla has offered me a sense of stability and home and the opportunity to like actually rest. And I was in a time in my life before we met that I was like, I have to try all the things. I have to do all the stuff. I have to be like the biggest and the loudest and the best and the fastest and blah. And I was really pushing in a lot of directions and definitely pushing in my sexuality and my exploration there. And I feel strongly that I needed that time. And I wanted that time. I grew a lot and I got a lot out of that time. But a lot of my growth in our relationship has been the slowing down and being able to actually place roots in this relationship and learn to trust and learn to undo some of the unhealthy patterns that I'd practiced in previous relationships because I felt safe and respected and trusted enough to give those things back. And so maybe it's not quite as flashy and as fun, but there has certainly been a lot of learning and growth on my side too. So.
Well, that's like you gave each other different things that made it really whole and beautiful.
Yeah, we're in love.
Well, it's very, yes, we can see that. It's so lovely. And this is part of what I love about doing this podcast is seeing the mushy, gushy cuteness of the couples. I can't, if people aren't watching on YouTube, they need to. Yes, they need to. They need to.
This is like the inspiration too for the solo crowd over here on this side of the camera. Like this is.
We're like, there's hope. There's hope. Wait,
There's hope.
Just got to buckle up because holy smokes.
Wild ride.
So I'm curious to hear a little bit more if you're willing to share when you're saying these patterns that you had, and maybe both of you have talked a little bit about your past and what these patterns that now that you've changed or shifted now being in this relationship and how that looks different.
Yeah. You want to go first?
Sure.
You'll have something smarter to say. So I'll just, because Gretchen was talking about that, it changed for me this very, I don't know if we're sure about your past, but like,
I'll tell you if you need to cut it out.
okay, was just like,
Yeah, we can edit it.
so sure how before her explorations into polyamory and kink and all the things, but like pretty monogamous and kind of a boring relationship. Sorry, I'm not watching. Like kind of boring, and then felt all that stuff, whatever you were feeling, and swung into all of those explorations. And I have to be poly, and I'm going to be kinky, and I'm going to be all the things that you were exploring. And then I was really worried because I felt like, if we're doing pendulum, I'm definitely that other side at this point. That's what I represent, or like what I have come from. And I was really worried that they would swing too far back and then keep feeling this tug to be whatever else they wanted to be. And so one of the things early on that became abundantly clear to me was that I have been completely captivated by and find Gretchen entirely enchanting. And my biggest desire in our relationship is to see them be there. Like, I want to see you, and I want to see what that is. I don't want it to be the version of you that makes me happy or the version of you that makes whoever proud. Like, and so that has been what I like in this partnership, what I guess I see my role in your life as. But that's what I'm interested in. I just want to know Gretchen, because every piece I know is lovely and dazzling and feeds my heart.
Which I mean, so what you're speaking to is a pattern of mine that has been that I would consider to be unhealthy throughout all of my past relationship history. And I still struggle with it. Absolutely. I'm not healed of it, but in that I am a very much a people pleaser. And I really identify with a fawning response to any kind of conflict. And so, despite having this strong understanding and narrative of my growth and of a really dynamic sense of self and of all of these activities and types of lifestyles that I've lived within those, if I actually take a microscope to them, in all of those times I've been following partners and leaning into the things that they like and the things that they want, or the things that I think would make me more appealing to a certain group of people that I was trying to get ahead with. Or, we chart this way back, the things that my parents would, whatever,
So I'll go back to the parent dynamic.
But within that is, I feel in the learning to trust and feel more respect and having some space and some time to grow and reflect and do my work. That is a lot of work that I'm doing right now, to not do that pendulum swing and actually try and understand, what do I want? What do I need? What does me look like? Which of these things, if we put them on a list, which ones of these things actually feel good to me, and which ones am I doing because they feel good to you? And that is really hard work, turns out. That's very
That's why we have you on. Yeah, it's true. I want to highlight, though, it's so amazing you're doing this work while being in a loving relationship. We've talked about autonomy and connection, and how, at least for me, this goal of finding partnerships, also being a people pleaser, where I can explore my own self-expression in the safety of a relationship, because my own pendulum goes from, okay, complete autonomy and no connection to other humans. So I avoid all of the people pleasing, or so enmeshed in a relationship. And so I think it's a great example you bring up of how you're continuing that work while being supported by a loving partner.
But it's hard though. Like, there are definitely times I don't I wouldn't say that I wish that I were solo at this time at all. But
Cross fingers, cross
so
fingers.
there are, like, it definitely pushes against my people pleasing that I have a person to please. Like, she's right here. She's clear about her needs and desires. Like, Kayla is not one to not tell you when she wants something. She is, like, loud and direct and clear. And it's hard in that context to see and to think ahead, like a good people pleaser does, to think ahead, to go, okay, I know that I worked on this skill and it became a deep part of who I was. And eventually I was at this level of it. And she would connect to that, and we could have a life that would look like this. I can do that kind of mapping and planning for myself. And it is really challenging to step back and know, maybe, like, the fear in my brain says, maybe I'm missing out on this grand, perfect connection that I could have with this love of my life, because I'm not willing to drop everything about who I am to be who she wants, who I perceive her to want.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me early on when I was starting to think about undoing some people pleasing, where I was like, maybe I should just be single. Maybe that's the only time that I will be able to actually operate out of my own needs. And I do in some ways think that would be easier. And also, I think I know myself well enough that I probably wouldn't be doing that work. Probably would have attached myself to someone and been people pleasing with that. So ultimately, why not just be glad that I'm right here being supported and doing that work?
Well, I think that's so much. I mean, what you're talking about is so familiar to so many people. And and I don't want to say just the queer community, but so many folks who have that dynamic of wanting to please and being attached, and then losing themselves. And then all of a sudden they break up, and you're like, oh, hi, I haven't seen you in a year and a half. Nice to see you again, friend.
Yeah, that is a huge thing I've learned from Kayla. She has really deep and important relationships with her friends. And coming from a monogamous background, a lot of my relationships with friends have at some point been romantic, at some point been sexual, whatever. And or they are work friends who are over here. And my friends are very categorical like that. And I've learned a lot of what it looks like to prioritize platonic relationships from Kayla, because when I entered her life, she was, I go on multiple trips a year that are just me and my best friends, and you're not invited. And I was like, how dare you? And then once she started doing that, I was like, where are my friends? Wait, what have I been doing this whole time? And it's really opened my eyes to the beauty of that. And that, it doesn't have to be polyamory. We don't have to put those labels that we already have on it, but these platonic relationships that are deep and important and take up a different space than the one that I take up. And that's definitely a work in progress for me.
That's something that a big relearning after I was in the most enmeshed codependent relationship of my 20s. And that ended, and I was like, I don't have any, I have no friends. I have no hobby. Nothing was me. And so I worked really hard over the course of several years to I found to find my people and build my community. And then when I met Gretchen, I was like, I had that already. So I was largely single, dating, just doing, I don't know what I was doing for several years. But yeah, it's a big learning, and it's something I've been trying to articulate, and I can't articulate it well, but it hints at why one of my favorite things about our relationship is that it's not everything in my life.
Yes.
It's weird to say, the way it's, when I say that, it makes me feel more in love, because I'm like, no, it gives us space to hopefully endure the long haul, which our goal is to be together as long as we're together. So it's a pretty achievable thing. But for real, I want to know Gretchen and be with them as long as we get, hopefully for a long time. We'll see what happens. But part of that is because they're not my everything, although significant for sure. Mm-hmm. It leaves space. Our relationship can go through different phases, and we're allowed to struggle, because if we're struggling, it doesn't mean my whole life is bonkers. It means, I can still do the activities that make me me and see my people and have my cup filled in other ways, and continue to show up and try and work through whatever we might be working through. That's the plan.
So that's an important point. I love that. And even as you talk about the way relationships shift and change, I'm often talking to monogamous folks about, do you do check-ins? Because relationships, even though you're monogamous, things will continue to change and shift. And I love that also. Just because one part of one's life changes doesn't mean everything has to be, impacted to the degree maybe that some of us, I'm going to raise my hand, guilty of that, especially in the relationship. I think that's society putting so much focus on who are you dating? Who are you with? What's your partnership? Well, and so what you just described is so much what I find trying to talk to people about, which is having that, yes, one person cannot be your all. And in fact, the more that you have these different relationships, the more you have space to actually be more connected. And you just described it in such a lovely way for the listeners to hear, because we try and say that in session, or try to say it to people. And the two of you saying this and be like, yeah, this is working. This is what's making us stronger and healthier and happier.
We're trying.
So, and not perfect, but just lovely in your own ways. Yeah. So we're curious, or I like to ask, so you've been together for about 3 years. What happened when COVID hit, and how did you come together? You're laughing. Something happened. Something happened.
I just love that. We were, of course, going to quarantine for 2 weeks together.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Oh, just 2 weeks. So you weren't living together yet?
No. Now we are living in the house we own.
So things really changed fast.
Let's just fast forward.
Yeah.
But
I was living in shared housing. Kayla had her own apartment with her past dog. May she rest in peace. And we got to this weird place very quickly in the pandemic where my housemates, which were lovely people, but I wasn't super close with. They were starting to have their own pods of people. And I was like, okay, so I live here, but then I spend all my time with my partner. And so then I just was like, well, this is kind of awkward, but I'll just move a duffel bag over for a couple of weeks until we figure out what this pandemic thing is. And then pretty much I never left. I just moved in. We then set an official move-in date once we realized that it was going to be a while. And in some ways, I felt a little robbed of the opportunity to make that choice, which, it was a choice and I did make it. But versus I've been in a few longish multi-year relationships, I guess. But I haven't lived with a partner by choice. I have lived with a partner out of necessity for a brief time before. And so I was looking forward pre-pandemic to coming to the decision to move in together and choosing a place together and doing those kinds of steps. And then it was like, well, I guess we live together now. Okay.
Honestly, though, part of that was Gretchen has had, you always kind of kept the bag packed.
I did. Yeah, I did. I have very much felt that vibe about my living situations and about my relationships in the past. And so there were pros and cons to that. It was not hard for me to go live in a different place. And it was kind of hard for me to not leave, to, make the choice of being like, okay, I'm really moving in, and not just because of necessity, not just because I had to, but because, okay, now we're living together. We're really living together. And then Kayla was in a place in her life to be looking at buying a house this last year in 2020.
Let's not get carried away. Well, Margaret's ridiculous. I just so happen to, I'm a teacher and I've been teaching for 10 years. And so it's like the bank was like, fake money. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, the bank was like, pay $0 for a house. And she was like, okay.
Oh, well, for now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot. I don't, man.
Yeah. Well, how so we found ourselves in a place where Kayla was looking at buying a house and we were living together, and it became a conversation of us buying a house because we weren't going to not live together. And so then it was that we spent a season looking at houses together and making choices about, not just where is Kayla's perfect place to live, but where is a place that I could start working on a garden like the ones that my mom and my sister grow, and where is a space that we could have a home gym, which we still don't have. It's not this space, but that's okay. Where are the places that are not just close to the places you need to go, but the places I need to go?
Yeah.
So really big. I mean, obviously it was a big step for her buying a house, but relationally, it was a really big step for me to be going through that process of, I am actively taking steps to put down roots and making a commitment to a space. And that was not something that I've really ever done before.
So that theme of like stability and putting down roots and growth and just this loveliness. I just imagine your hands in the garden or in the soil of this house.
And one of the things, Gretchen, we worked on, I don't know, over the summer was like, she'll be like, can I do this to the backyard, plant this thing? I was like, why are you asking me? It has kind of sometimes it's endearing. We'll love it. But like a doctor, like, can I do this? Yeah, please don't ask me. And like, you get to make your own decisions. Do not check in with me. I don't have anything to offer. So that's been kind of cute to the point. Sweet little thing. Like, honestly, we've been here for 10 months, almost a year. And it's like 8 months into living here. I was like, wait, trying to organize things still and slowly figure out how to, it's not very big, whatever. But it's a little tiny 2-bedroom house. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get us a dresser. We don't even have a dresser. And I didn't really look, and my little Gretchen still had clothes just kind of shoved into boxes. And I was like, wait, is this what your clothing situation has been like for 8 months? I just kind of lived through the boxes, and I thought, oh. So I ended up buying a dresser, and I was like, may I please invite you to also take up space in this home?
Oh,
Well, it's been a lot of that inviting to space. And then sometimes realize, what have I done? Why have I created a monster who has opinions and needs and now is learning how to be angry at me?
Yeah. The next step in this life is that now I can take up space, but now I can also be angry.
She's laughing because I know what it is. What is it?
She's laughing because we were on a trip to the beach a couple months ago, and I got really angry and didn't know how to express it, and so I just clapped really loudly. And that was the best I could do at that moment, given my and I'm like exploring my tools about anger. It's not a familiar emotion for me, but
brings me so much joy.
really frequently she claps and says Kayla really loud.
Well, speaking of joy, we have had so much fun listening to your story and hearing about your growth and just your interactions. And we like to wrap up our time with talking about each of our queer joy of the week. And we invite you to join. And before we get to the queer joy, though, I want to make sure, because you're talking about the gym, and I want you to have the opportunity to say a snippet about anything you want to share with the listeners about what you do or what you're doing in the world or something to share. And then we'll talk about our queer joys as we wrap up.
Great. I mean, yeah, we definitely, as Kayla said, she doesn't identify as a jock, but I do. You know, we met at the gym and we go to the gym together. It is an important part of our lives. But right now I'm coaching a whole weightlifting team. I'm the head coach of the Olympic style, not like Olympic athletes, but Olympic style weightlifting team at Magna Strength and Conditioning. And I compete in that sport as well. So on a pandemic. Yeah, it's a huge part of my life. And I have been working at Shebop for 7 years this month. And it is actually my second to last month of working with them, which is so special. I love Shebop forever. It's time for me to move on. I'm going back to school next year. And so just making some changes in my life in that way, but really like a bittersweet and mostly sweet. The bitterness is just that it's ending. But at this point, I'm wrapping up my last couple months of work with them, which has just been such a special and cool part of my 20s.
Wow.
Yeah, and I teach high school math. So
high school math, yes.
And I honestly, the reason I teach high school math, just in case any listeners out there, I know lots of people dislike math. It's a problematic gatekeepery subject. And that's one of the reasons I teach it, is my lifelong dream to make math accessible and empower kids, particularly my students of color, to just crush it and take up space and make it not what it is.
That's awesome. If you know anybody who needs math help, this guy.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well,
What a queer joy.
I always ask you to start.
It's funny too, because on some weeks we record multiple episodes and I'm like, oh God, I need another joy. Yeah. Well, this one feels personal, but I'll name it. As I said before, I'm solo poly. I was divorced a year ago from a 10-year relationship. So I've definitely been like treading lightly in my dating situations. But I had this realization. I also identify as demisexual. And for me, sexual pleasure really comes in a committed, loving relationship. And I had the realization I'm like totally ready to fall in love again. I mean, and for me, that doesn't mean it's going to happen right away. But like, that's this is very different than what last like looked like. It was not in this place. So that's my queer joy.
Great joy.
Yeah. You're sharing. Congrats.
Well, I am recently solo, and my journey right now is to explore all different kinds of relationships and not to go back into patterns, as Gretchen so lovely puts different patterns. And I have a goal, and I've told everyone that I am not allowed on a dating app until 2022.
Hell yeah.
To give myself space. When some people are like, okay, Keely, first of all, some people are like, that's not very long. And then other people are like, oh, but they're placing bets. So like, really? Like, really, you're going to wait that long?
Okay.
So my queer joy is to be really sitting with that and making, as I'm not in a committed monogamous relationship, romantic relationship, the opening has been all these connections and all of these things have just opened up for me. And a lot of queer platonic friendships and new opportunities, even just at the podcast and with work and just all of these lovely things. I'm like, oh, wait, I can be okay just kind of chilling by myself and it can actually feel okay.
Yeah.
So that would be my continued journey, but that realization of this week.
Absolutely. Do you have a joy?
Yes, you go first.
Okay. My queer joy, it's not new this week, but it is continuing, is that we have dear friends who just recently had a baby and they are gay. And so we're assuming this baby's gay because that's how it works. I have, in this shift in my jobs and careers, I get the pleasure of hanging out with this little kiddo 2 days a week. And it's just like, it's special to see a queer partnership flourishing and having a kiddo and having those conversations about gay babies and gay families and all of that. Being, my own childhood, my mom is married to a woman. I wouldn't say I have 2 moms, but my mom's married to a woman. I have a very gay family, and it's sweet to see that and now be part of a new gay family in that way.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
I don't want it to be like that I'm not sharing a personal thing. I'm kind of sharing because I teach high schoolers.
Yeah.
My biggest sources of joy. And I heard a coming out story today, and it was like a really wild day. But then the student who they've come out to me before were then telling me about how they came out to one of their classes. And I was just so tender. And it's interesting sometimes because kids, on one hand, they're like, oh, it's not a big deal. I'm gay or I'm queer. And then sometimes it's just like, their journey is personal, shocker. And it's just really special. Like anytime I got to deal with that today. And then I have another sweet kid come and tell me that then I can't say their name, but they came to tell me about a breakup. But it was also really sweet that these kids just want to share their lives. Like, look, Stoltz, I need relationship advice. And I was like, I got you. It's just really tender to try and package my age advice for a high school brain that is doing different things. And it just brings me endless joy. Yeah.
That is so awesome. And I can relate, only I'm not a teacher, but I have a high schooler and I have a queer high schooler.
Oh.
And so and the little friends that come over. And so,
and then it's like they start to, I think there's not a lot of queer teachers at our school. And I love to kind of play a little game that's like, you're really into being in my room all the time at lunch. You just don't know yet. This is I see where you're going, but I'll just tell me. So the baby gays really make it so tender and sweet.
All the baby gays.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you too so much. It's been wonderful listening to your stories. Thank you for sharing and being vulnerable and being here. And thank you, listeners, for listening today. And we hope all of you have a wonderful, queer, joyful week.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Queer Relationships, Queer Joy, a podcast by the Connective Therapy Collective, hosted by Keely Helmick and Melisa de Seguirant, with audio edited and produced by me, Cardinal Marking. Intro music is by Bad Snacks, and outro music by Ruby Amonfu. This week's guests were Kayla and Gretchen. Find Gretchen at Magnus Strength and Conditioning Gym in Portland, Oregon. If this episode made you smile or think, tell us about it. If you hated it, tell us about it. Review us on iTunes or send us an email at info@connectivetherapycollective.com. For more queer joy, visit our website at www.connectivetherapycollective.com. Love ya. Bye.